Many old people enjoy watching the same shows again, not because they forget what happened, not because they have nothing new to watch. There is something deeper going on inside the mind. When a person grows older, the brain slowly changes how it handles emotions. New things take more effort. New stories need attention. They need energy. And energy is something that becomes limited with age. But old shows, they feel easy. The mind already knows the characters. It knows the voices. It knows what will happen next. There is no pressure to understand, no need to focus too hard. It feels calm. This calm feeling is very important. As people age, their world becomes smaller. Fewer people visit. Conversations become shorter. Days become quieter. In this silence, the mind starts looking for something familiar, something that feels safe. A show they have watched before becomes that safe place. It is not just a show anymore. It becomes a kind of emotional home. When the same scene plays again, the brain does not feel stress. Instead, it feels comfort, like sitting in the same chair every day, like drinking tea from the same cup. Familiar things reduce anxiety, and many old people carry silent anxiety inside them. They may not say it, they may not even understand it clearly, but it is there, a small fear of change, a quiet worry about the future, a feeling that things are no longer in their control, so they turn to something they can control. A show they already know. They know how it starts. They know how it ends. Nothing unexpected will happen. No surprises. No confusion. This gives the brain a sense of stability, and stability becomes very valuable in old age. There is also another layer, memory. Old people do not just watch the show, they watch their own past through it. A scene might remind them of a time when they were younger. A certain dialogue might bring back a memory of someone they once loved. A place in the show might look like a place they once visited. So they are not only watching the show, they are reliving moments of their own life. This is why sometimes they smile at small things in the show, even when nothing special is happening on screen, because something special is happening inside them. There is also comfort in knowing the ending. Life becomes uncertain as people grow older. Health changes. People leave. Days feel unpredictable. But in a familiar show, everything is certain. The good moment will come. The problem will be solved. The story will finish in a known way. This gives a quiet sense of peace. It is like telling the mind, some things still make sense. Another important point is emotional safety. New shows can bring strong emotions, confusion, fast scenes, loud sounds, complex stories. This can feel overwhelming, but old shows move at a pace the mind already understands. The brain does not feel attacked, it feels relaxed. This is why many old people prefer slow, simple, familiar content. Not because they cannot understand new things, but because they do not want to feel tired. There is a difference. People often misunderstand this behavior. They think, why are they watching the same thing again and again? But they do not see what is happening inside. They do not see the comfort, the emotional connection, the sense of control. They only see repetition. But for the person watching, it is not repetition. It is reassurance. There is also loneliness. This part is quiet, but very real. Sometimes the voices in the show become like companions. The characters feel like people they know. In a house where not many people talk, a familiar voice from a show can feel like someone sitting nearby. Even if it is not real, the feeling is real. And feelings matter more than logic at this stage of life. Have you ever noticed how some old people watch a show and softly react to it? They smile, they nod. Sometimes they even speak a few words. It is because they are not just watching, they are connecting. They are filling a gap that slowly grows with time. There is also habit. When something is repeated over many years, it becomes part of daily life. A certain show at a certain time, a certain chair, a certain position. This routine gives structure to the day, and structure gives comfort. Without structure, days can feel empty. Too much empty time can make the mind restless. So the show becomes a way to organize time. Morning, afternoon, evening. Each part of the day feels connected to something, and that something becomes important, very important. Some old people may even feel disturbed if this routine breaks, not because of the show itself, but because the structure breaks. And when structure breaks, the mind feels unstable. There is also a deeper psychological pattern. The brain, as it ages, starts to prefer known patterns over unknown ones. It is a natural shift, not a weakness, a survival mechanism. The mind tries to reduce effort, reduce confusion, reduce emotional strain, so it chooses what is already known. This is why repetition increases in actions, in thoughts, and in choices. Watching the same show is just one example, but behind it, there is a full system working quietly, trying to protect the person, trying to keep things simple, trying to keep the mind at peace. And maybe the most important reason is this: they are not looking for excitement anymore. They are looking for peace. Young people often chase new experiences, new stories, new emotions. But old people slowly move in the opposite direction. They move toward calm, toward stillness, toward familiarity, because they have already seen so much. They have already lived many stories. Now they do not need more noise. They need quiet, and a familiar show gives that quiet. It asks nothing from them. It gives without taking. And in that simple exchange, something very human happens. The mind rests, the heart softens, and for a little while, everything feels okay again. And when everything feels okay, even for a short time, the mind holds on to it. This is why the habit becomes stronger over time. The more comfort a person feels from something, the more they return to it, not out of weakness, but out of need. Old age is not just about the body slowing down. It is also about emotional balance becoming more delicate. Small things can disturb the mind. A harsh word, a sudden change, a confusing situation. So the brain starts choosing carefully. It avoids what feels heavy. It moves toward what feels light. And a familiar show is light. It does not demand attention. It does not challenge identity. It does not create tension. It simply flows. There is also a hidden sense of control here. As people age, many parts of life slowly move out of their control. Health becomes uncertain. Family members become busy. Decisions are made by others. Even daily routines can depend on someone else. This loss of control is not always spoken about, but it is deeply felt. So when an old person chooses to watch a show they already know, they are making a quiet decision, a small act of control. They decide what to watch, when to watch, how long to watch. And inside that small choice, there is dignity, there is independence. Even if it looks simple from the outside, think about it. When someone replays the same show, they are not just watching it. They are choosing certainty over confusion. They are choosing emotional safety over risk. And that choice matters more than most people realize. There is another subtle thing. Attention span changes with age, not because the mind becomes weak, but because the mind becomes selective. It no longer wants to spend energy on things that do not feel meaningful. New shows often take time to build connection. New characters, new plots, new emotions. This can feel like too much effort, especially when the reward is uncertain. But an old show gives immediate connection. From the first scene, the brain already feels engaged. No waiting, no adjustment, just instant familiarity. And this instant connection feels satisfying. There is also a sense of identity tied to these shows. Some shows were watched during important phases of life, when they were young, when they were raising children, when life felt full. So watching those shows again is not just about entertainment. It is about reconnecting with who they once were. It is like meeting an old version of themselves, a younger self, a stronger self, a happier self. And for a moment, that version feels close again. This is why certain shows become deeply personal, even if they seem ordinary to others. You might see just a simple scene, but they might see a memory, a feeling, a part of their life, and that cannot be replaced by anything new. Have you noticed how some old people do not even watch the screen all the time? The show plays, but their eyes move away. Sometimes they close their eyes. Sometimes they just listen, because they already know what is happening. The show becomes background comfort, like a soft presence in the room, like someone sitting quietly nearby. This kind of presence reduces loneliness. It fills the silence without demanding attention. and silence when it becomes too deep can feel heavy. So the show acts like a gentle companion, not too loud, not too distant, just there. There is also something about predictability that calms the nervous system. When the brain knows what will happen next, it does not stay on alert. It relaxes. Heart rate stays steady. Thoughts slow down. The body feels safe. But when something is unknown, the brain stays active, trying to guess, trying to prepare. And this can feel tiring. Old people often feel this tiredness more quickly, so they avoid unnecessary mental effort. And again, they return to what feels easy, what feels known, what feels safe. Another quiet reason is disappointment. Over time, people experience many disappointments. Relationships change, expectations break, trust gets tested, so the mind becomes careful. It does not want to invest emotions into something new that might not satisfy. But an old show has already proven itself. It has already given joy, so the mind trusts it. There is no risk, no emotional loss, only a return to something that once felt good and still does. Some people might say this is living in the past, but that is not entirely true. It is not about escaping the present. It is about managing the present in a gentle way. It is about creating small pockets of comfort inside the day, because not every part of old age feels easy. There are aches, there are long, quiet hours, there are moments when thoughts become heavy, and in those moments, something simple like a familiar show can make a difference. A small difference, but a real one. It can shift the mood. It can soften the silence. It can remind the heart that not everything is lost, that some things still bring peace, and that peace, even if it comes from repetition, is still valuable, very valuable. Over time, these small habits become emotional anchors. They hold the person steady. They give rhythm to life. They create a sense of continuity. Yesterday felt like today. Today will feel like tomorrow. And in that sameness, there is stability. Without it, days can feel disconnected. And when days feel disconnected, the mind starts to drift. So repetition becomes a way to stay grounded, to stay connected to time, to stay connected to self. And maybe, without saying it out loud, this is what they are really doing. They are holding on to something that does not change, in a life where so much has already changed, and that quiet holding means more than it appears. And when something does not change, it becomes a kind of emotional anchor. Old people do not always say this, but they feel it. They feel how quickly the world moves now. New technology, new ways of talking, new habits. Everything keeps shifting. Sometimes, it feels like they are standing still while everything else moves fast. This creates a quiet distance, a distance between them and the present world. So they turn towards something that does not move, something that stays the same. A familiar show becomes that place. It does not rush. It does not change its rules. It does not leave them behind. It stays exactly as it was. And in that stillness, they feel included again. There is also something about emotional predictability. In old age, emotions can feel stronger, not louder, but deeper. A small sadness can stay longer. A small worry can feel heavier. So the mind becomes protective. It avoids emotional surprises. A new show might bring unexpected sadness, unexpected tension, even confusion. But an old show has no hidden turns. They already know which parts are light. They already know which parts to skip. Yes, many old people skip scenes, not with a remote, but with their attention. They look away when a scene feels heavy. They return when it feels safe again, because they remember. This is a kind of emotional self-control, a quiet wisdom. They are not just watching blindly. They are choosing how much to feel. And that is something many younger people do not even realize. There is also a sense of companionship that grows over time. When you watch the same characters again and again, they stop feeling like strangers. They feel familiar, almost like people you know. You understand their behavior. You expect their reactions. Sometimes you even feel comfort just hearing their voice. For an old person who spends long hours alone, this matters. It reduces the feeling of isolation. even if only a little. And sometimes, that little is enough. Think about the evenings. Evenings can be the hardest part of the day. The light fades. The noise of the world becomes quiet. Thoughts become louder. Memories come back, not always happy ones. So during these hours, a familiar show can act like a shield. It keeps the mind occupied, but not in a tiring way, in a gentle way, a way that allows the person to stay present without feeling overwhelmed. There is also a deep connection between repetition and comfort in human psychology. Even young people feel it, listening to the same song again, visiting the same place, eating the same food. But in old age, this pattern becomes stronger because the need for emotional safety becomes stronger. The brain is not looking for novelty anymore. It is looking for stability, and repetition gives that stability. Some old people may not even realize why they do this. If you ask them, they might say something simple. I just like it. But behind that simple answer, there is a complex emotional system working, a system built over years, a system shaped by experience, loss, love, and change. There is also the role of fatigue, not just physical fatigue, mental fatigue. Understanding new stories can require effort, following fast scenes, remembering new names, adjusting to new styles. This can feel draining. So the mind naturally chooses what feels easy, what flows without effort, and that ease is comforting. It does not challenge the brain, it supports it. This is why sometimes, even if a new show is interesting, they may still go back to the old one. Not because the new one is bad, but because the old one feels better. Familiar comfort often wins over new excitement. There is also trust. Over time, people become careful about where they place their trust. This applies not only to people, but also to experiences. A familiar show has already earned trust. It has already proven that it will not disappoint, so the mind returns to it without hesitation, without doubt, and that trust creates relaxation, because there is no need to stay alert, no need to be careful, just watch, just feel, just be. Another quiet truth is this. Sometimes old people are not watching the show at all, they are sitting with it. There is a difference. The show is there, the sound is there, but their mind moves between the present and the past, between the screen and their own memories. The show becomes a bridge between what is happening now and what has already happened in their life. And this movement, this gentle shifting, feels natural to them. It does not feel confusing. It feels like living in both worlds at the same time, the outer world and the inner world. And maybe this is something very few people notice. They think repetition means boredom, but for the person experiencing it, it is not boredom. It is depth. It is connection. It is emotional regulation. It is quiet healing. Because in old age, healing does not come from big changes. It comes from small, steady comforts, from things that do not demand, from things that simply exist, like a familiar voice, a known scene, a story that has already been lived many times and still feels good, still feels safe, still feels like something worth returning to again and again and again. And when something feels worth returning to again and again, it becomes more than a habit. It becomes part of how a person lives, not loudly, not in a way that others notice, but quietly, deeply, inside their daily rhythm. Old people often build their day around small, predictable moments. A cup of tea, a short walk, a familiar chair, and somewhere in that routine, a familiar show. It is not just filling time, it is shaping time. It gives the day a beginning, a middle, and an end. Without it, the day can feel long, too open, too empty. And when time feels empty, thoughts can become heavy. So the show acts like a gentle structure. It holds the day together. There is also something very human in this behavior, something that connects all ages, because at the core, every person wants the same thing, to feel safe, to feel understood, to feel at peace. The difference is how people try to reach that feeling. Young people often look forward. They search for something new, something exciting. But old people often look inward. They search for something familiar, something calming. And this shift is not a loss. It is a change in direction, a natural one. After living many years, the mind learns what truly matters. And often, it is not newness, it is comfort. There is also a quiet respect in this choice, even if others do not see it. Choosing peace over noise, choosing calm over chaos, choosing something that soothes the mind instead of something that stimulates it. This is not giving up. This is understanding what the heart needs now. Some old people may sit in front of the same show for years, not every day with full attention, but with a sense of connection. It becomes like a background of their life, like a familiar sound that is always there. And over time, that sound becomes meaningful, even if it seems simple. There is also the idea of emotional energy. In younger years, people have more of it. They can handle strong emotions, excitement, stress, change. But in old age, emotional energy becomes limited, so it is used carefully, very carefully. They do not want to spend it on something uncertain. They want to spend it on something that gives back, something that returns calm instead of taking it away. And familiar shows do exactly that. They give more than they take. That balance matters more than most people realize. There is also something about endings. Old people think about endings more, not in a fearful way all the time, but in a quiet, aware way. They know that time is limited. They feel it in their body, in their routine, in their relationships. So they start choosing things that feel complete, stories that already have an ending, stories they understand fully, because unfinished things can feel uncomfortable. They leave questions, they create tension. But a known story feels complete. It starts, it flows, it ends, and that full cycle brings a kind of emotional satisfaction, a sense that something makes sense, even if life itself sometimes does not. And maybe this is one of the deepest reasons. Life becomes complex in ways that cannot always be explained. But a simple, familiar show still follows clear rules. Good moments, difficult moments, resolution, a pattern that feels right, a pattern that the mind can rest in, without struggle, without confusion. There is also a quiet acceptance in this behavior. Acceptance that not everything needs to change, that it is okay to return to the same place. That comfort is not something to feel guilty about. Old people understand this better than most. They do not chase approval in the same way anymore. They do not feel the need to explain every choice. If something feels good, they allow it, even if others do not understand. And this freedom, this quiet permission, is powerful. It allows them to live gently, on their own terms, in their own rhythm, even in small things like what they watch. And if you really think about it, watching the same show again is not about the show at all. It is about the feeling it gives, a feeling of calm, a feeling of control, a feeling of connection, a feeling that, for a little while, everything is in its place. And maybe that is something everyone is searching for, just in different ways. So the next time you see an old person watching the same show again, you might pause for a moment, and instead of thinking, "Why again?" you might think, "What does this give them that nothing else does?" Because in that simple act, there is comfort, there is memory, there is quiet healing, and there is a kind of peace that does not need anything new to exist.